Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. That was maybe Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself by Sly and the Family Stone, kind of. It was sort of the guitar part and bass part, kind of, not exactly. Anyway, that's what you get. You didn't pay for this, so I suppose that's what you get for free. And I was asked by somebody who sent me an email to talk about Dharanis, which are these kind of prayers that exist in Buddhism and Zen sometimes. And I don't know much about Dharanis, so what I'm going to do is a sort of bait and switch. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Dharanis and then not talk about Dharanis at all. So, my little bit about Dharanis is, here's what I know about Dharanis, which is not much. I know about the, Dharani is spelled Dharani, and they are really ancient sort of prayers for warding off evil. And when I looked this up on the internet to kind of plan for this video, the first thing I read was Dharanis are not strictly speaking part of the Zen tradition, but they kind of came into the Zen tradition later on through contact with the Shingon sect and some other sects of Buddhism, which is what I always suspected, because they don't really seem to belong there. And they're just sort of weird verses that are intoned sometimes at temples to ward off evil spirits and stuff, which really doesn't sound much like Zen at all. And here's one. I heard this a lot at Tassajara when I was up there sometimes. The Shosai Myo Kichijo Dharani, which goes No mo san manda moto san ohara chi kotosha sono nan toji to en gya ki unnun shifura hara shifura chishusa chishuri sohaja senchi gya shirie somoko. Kind of like that. It's really ancient stuff. I think it's Sanskrit, and then there was another really, really long one. I mean, it's Sanskrit translated into Chinese and then pronounced the way Japanese people. Then there was this really long one called the Daihi Shindarani, which is really, really long. I don't know much about these Dharanis except what I just told you. They're ancient prayers to kind of ward off evil and try to bring good into the temple. But, like I said, it's a bait and switch, because instead of talking about Dharanis, what I want to talk to you about is what I titled this video, Dogen's Prayer. So what I'm calling Dogen's Prayer is often called Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon. Don't ask me what that translates to, because I forgot to look it up. But what it is a section of an essay by Dogen called Keisei Sanshiki, which appears in Volume 1 of Shobogenzo. And it is The Voices of the River Valley and the Form of the Mountains. It is chapter 9 in the Nishijima Cross version of Shobogenzo. It appears in volume 1. I think I said that already. I just noticed that in the Kazuaki Tanahashi version, it is chapter 10. So in case you're looking it up at home. But what's interesting about this, and I also featured it in my book, Don't Be a Jerk. And in my book, Don't Be a Jerk, it is called Hearing Weird Stuff Late at Night is the chapter. And it's a story I recount about hearing a mountain stream late at night, and I'll let you read the book if you want to read the story I wrote about hearing a mountain stream late at night when I was at a temple in Japan. But the interesting thing about this little section of what's it called, Voices of the River Valley and Form of the Mountains, is that it's a kind of little prayer. Like a little prayer, like Madonna sings, which is real uncharacteristic of Dogen. So what I'd like to do, just for starters, is I'll read you the section. And so the reason it's called Eihei Koso Hotsuganmon is because it's sometimes excerpted by the people at the Sotoshu and then chanted as its own thing. So the actual essay by Dogen is quite long. Let's see. it's one of his longer essays. Some of Dogen's essays are only a few pages. This one's about 10 pages, I guess. And the section they excerpt out of it comes on the very last page. And I'll just read you the entire paragraph, and I'll tell you, it's one paragraph, and I'll tell you the part that's excerpted and chanted. So, the whole paragraph goes. Furthermore, obviously he's extending from the last paragraph, but we'll forget about that. If the mind or the flesh grow lazy or disbelieving, we should wholeheartedly confess before the Buddha. When we do this, the power of the virtue of confessing before the Buddha saves us and makes us pure. This virtue can promote unhindered pure belief and fortitude. Once pure belief reveals itself, both self and the external world are moved into action, and the benefit universally covers sentient and non-sentient beings. The general intention of the confession is as follows, and that's the preamble, and then here's the part that they chant at Zen temples sometimes, and here we go. I pray that although my many bad actions in the past have accumulated one after another, and there are causes and conditions which are obstructing the truth, the Buddhas and the patriarchs. Now, in more recent translations, this is the Nishijima Cross translation. In more recent translations, sometimes they substitute the word ancestors for patriarchs because the original word so is non-gendered, but I'm just going to read it the way Nishijima and Cross translated it with the word patriarch in there. The Buddhas and the patriarchs who attained the truth by following the Buddha's way will show compassion for me, that they will cause karmic accumulations to dissolve, and that they will remove obstacles to learning the truth. May their virtue and their gates of Dharma vastly fill and pervade the limitless Dharma world. Let me share in their compassion. In the past, Buddhist patriarchs were the same as us, and in the future we may become Buddhist patriarchs. When we look up at Buddhist patriarchs, they are one Buddhist patriarch. When we reflect upon the establishment of the mind, it is one establishment of the mind. When the Buddhist patriarchs radiate their compassion in all directions, we can grasp favorable opportunities, and we fall upon favorable opportunities. Therefore, in the words of Dogen, if we did not attain perfection in past lives, we should attain perfection in the present. With this life, we can deliver the body, which is the accumulation of past lives. The eternal Buddhas, before they realized the truth, were the same as people today. After realizing the truth, people today will be eternal Buddhas. That's the end of the quote, and then it goes on with Dogen's words. Quietly we should master this reasoning. This is direct experience of realizing the state of Buddha. When we confess like this, the mystical help of the Buddhist patriarchs is invariably present. Disclosing the thoughts in our mind and the form of our body, we should confess to the Buddha. The power of confession causes the roots of wrongdoing to dissolve. This is right training of one color. One color means pure and unadulterated. That's the footnote. It is right belief in the mind and right belief in the body. And that's where the Eihei Koso Hotsu Ganmon ends, and that's the part that's chanted. Now, that's kind of interesting because we don't usually think of prayer as being part of what Dogen taught. And it does say pray. In the version that they chant at the San Francisco Zen Center, they don't say pray. Let me see what they say. They don't actually say the word pray. They kind of... It's interesting. They just kind of gloss over the word pray entirely, which is interesting that the Nishijima Cross translation uses the word pray. So anyway, don't worry about it. It just doesn't use the word pray. But it's interesting because we usually think of Dogen as being a kind of non-dualistic sort of guy, and you wouldn't think of prayer as being something that would come up in a non-dualistic sort of philosophy, because non-dualism means I and God, if you want to go there, are one and the same. I and Buddha are one and the same. I and everything are one and the same. So who am I praying to these Buddhist ancestors or praying to Buddha? But I think beyond being or above being non-dualistic, I think more important to Dogen than being purely non-dualistic or being consistently a non-dualistic philosopher was being practical. And he must have seen that this sort of dualistic prayer attitude was practical and was useful for the people who were studying with him. And we got to remember, and I point this out all the time, I think people have this kind of almost cartoonish image of who these Buddhist monks were up there in the mountains, these guys in the mountains, and it's kind of fed by, television and movies and these images of who they were. But they were mostly young kids. They were often teenagers. They were kind of different people from different walks of life, but often they were young kids, and they were drawn from rural farm kids often. So they weren't necessarily the most sophisticated people in the world, and maybe this sort of idea of praying was something that he found useful for the people that he was working with. In any case, Dogen must have found it useful, this idea of praying to the Buddhas and ancestors, and so he instituted it as part of what he did, and it's been carried on ever since, and it's something that you find done in Buddhist temples, Zen temples in the Soto lineage even today. As far as Nishijima Roshi was concerned, we never did it. We never chanted this as a thing. We never chanted the Hotsu. I keep forgetting the name of it. Eihei Koso Hotsu Ganmon. We never chanted it with his group, and neither did Tim McCarthy, my first Zen teacher. So it's not something that's universally done, but it's a kind of a standard part of the Soto Shu ceremonial stuff that you'll find done in lots of Zen temples. So I thought that might be interesting to share with you, and I'm sorry I can't answer the questions about Dharanis. And just as a kind of a general thing, people often ask me things to do as part of a home practice in Zen, and to me what I do as a home practice in Zen is I sit Zazen in the morning and at night. That's my home practice of Zen, and then I might read Dogen and stuff like that. That's it. I don't do a lot of these chanting and ritual stuff that you might find at temples. When I go to temples, I'll do the ritual stuff that they happen to be doing at the temples, but that's for my home practice. It's Zazen. Period. That's it. So there you go. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that and maybe got something out of it and maybe found it interesting. If you want to donate to me telling you more interesting stuff on the internet, you can go to the URL that you are seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find my PayPal and Patreon information and links. Those are my main and usually only ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support, but as always, you don't got to donate if you don't want to donate, because this is offered for free. So we will see you again. Have a good time all the time. Laters. Bye. Hey Ziggy, what do you think of that? What do you think of the prayer to the Buddhist ancestors? Like that? Now you're not interested. You just want to catch flies. All right. See you later, Ziggy. All right. Bye.